Right, looks like we're doing another one of these. My name is Zack Shapiro. I'm the head of policy at the Bitcoin Policy Institute, and I'm here recording another line-by-line reaction to yet another MSNBC hit piece on the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve and Cynthia Lummis's Bitcoin Act bill, which would put Bitcoin on the federal balance sheet.
And in the new Congress, a Senate Republican, I want you to please pay attention to this. I know you want to tune out, but please don't. They plan to propose a bill that would sell off some of the Federal Reserve's gold to buy Bitcoin. Watch this.
Oh no, not some of the Federal Reserve's gold. What would we ever do without that?
Have we got a present for President Donald Trump? Here it is. This is the Bitcoin Reserve Bill. Over 5 years, the United States will assemble 1 million Bitcoin, 5% of the world's supply. And it will be held for a minimum of 20 years and can be used for one purpose: reduce our debt.
Well, Cynthia Lummis, you can take that bill and sit down with me any night of the week, and I would love to go through every word, every paragraph, every page. But I'd first like to know how much the crypto industry has given you, because for fact's sake, you cannot pay debt down with Bitcoin.
Okay, so that's a pretty interesting claim that you can't pay debt down with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a form of money. Lots of people accept it as payment. I'd be willing to believe that both a lot of creditors and foreign nations would accept Bitcoin directly as payment. And then even if they didn't, you could sell Bitcoin for dollars and then you could make payments with those dollars. So the idea is, we have a tremendous amount of debt in the United States. We pay more on the interest on our debt every year than we pay for all of our defense spending. And if you put Bitcoin on the federal balance sheet, that Bitcoin appreciates in price. It's worth more in the future. You could either pay that Bitcoin or sell that Bitcoin for dollars to pay off the debt that otherwise could be ruinous to future generations. So really not sure what that means that you can't pay debt with Bitcoin.
If Bitcoin crosses the $100,000 mark, like it did last week, that means it would cost the government at least $100 billion. And former SEC official John Reed.
So again, it's a little bit confusing. Is it that it's going to cost the government $100 billion, or are we going to sell $100 billion worth of gold that we already have, which is what the Bitcoin Act says and what was alleged at the beginning of this clip. So again, this feels like a little bit of a sleight of hand here, where it goes from we're getting rid of some of our gold in Fort Knox to this is going to cost you, the taxpayer, $100 billion.
He was on 60 Minutes last night to sound the alarm about just how dangerous this industry is.
Before this next clip of John Reed Stark, I think it's just important to recognize who he is. John Reed Stark is indeed a former SEC lawyer. He left the SEC in 2009. He now runs a consulting firm called John Reed Stark LLC and is basically a full-time anti-crypto troll. He goes on Twitter Spaces, he makes videos, he does reports, and basically every time he talks about crypto, it's an existential threat, whether it's it's going to boil the oceans, it's going to finance terrorism, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see how measured John Reed Stark can be on this question.
Crypto is a scourge. It's not something that you want in your society. It has no utility. It's just pure speculation. Remember, there's no balance sheet to crypto. There's no financial statements.
Okay, so the first claim John Reed Stark is making here is that crypto is pure speculation. There's no balance sheet to crypto. So look, there are lots of different types of cryptocurrencies. Some of them do have business models behind them and profits, but here with the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Bill, we're talking about Bitcoin in particular. It is true that Bitcoin doesn't have a balance sheet, right? It's not a company. It doesn't have income. It doesn't have expenses. It's sort of an inert commodity like gold. It's a weird take 16 years or so into the existence of Bitcoin to still be harping on the fact that it doesn't have a balance sheet. I just disagree that it's pure speculation. Bitcoin has fundamental characteristics to it. Its decentralization, its scarcity, its fungibility, all the things that make it good money, which at this point I think make it an investable asset class, which is what you would hear from any of the major investment banks, any of the major hedge funds involved in the space. Bitcoin is essentially it's digital gold, and the idea that it doesn't have some of the same features of the company isn't really a knock on it. And calling it pure speculation seems missing the mark.
Every single crime you can conceive of is easier to do now because of crypto, especially ransomware, human sex trafficking, sanctions evasion, money laundering. North Korea is financing their nuclear weapons program using crypto.
So this is the parade of horribles we hear sort of constantly touted by anti-Bitcoin folks. And look, there is some truth to the fact that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency writ large is useful to criminals in some instances, right? Any new technology is going to be used by criminals. When cars became a widespread technology, gangsters in the 1920s would use it for drive-by shootings with their Tommy guns during Prohibition. When the internet was created, criminals invented cybercrime. That was really bad for child exploitation. There just is some truth to the fact that neutral technologies can be used by anyone, especially permissionless technologies like Bitcoin. That's not a good reason against technological progress. And I would note that Bitcoin as a totally open ledger that you can view on a program called a block explorer, which is free to anyone, and which the government has very sophisticated analytics tools to deal with, Bitcoin is actually a pretty bad tool for money laundering. It's a pretty bad tool for sanctions evasion. If you try and launder money using Bitcoin, it's very easy to see where the funds came from and to, and people have been caught and prosecuted with Bitcoin blockchain used as evidence against them. And OFAC, the part of the Treasury that deals with sanctions, has blacklisted wallets that they know, for example, belong to Iran or North Korea, and those funds are frozen out of the traditional banking system. So again, a lot of these claims are either irrelevant, if they suggest that we shouldn't adopt new technology because criminals might use it, or they're wrong in terms of, Bitcoin opens up a new paradigm for money laundering.
Every crime you can think of is exponentially easier because of crypto. Here to discuss, Zeke Fox, investigative reporter for Bloomberg.
So again, just a little bit of background on Zeke Fox here. He wrote this book called Number Go Up, which is, the entire book is dunking on crypto. He released it after the collapse of FTX. I think the subtitle of the book is The Rise and the Staggering Fall of Crypto. This was when Bitcoin was at about $20,000. But he's someone who is, again, fully bought into crypto as just a scam and is making a career, right? His livelihood is selling books and saying that Bitcoin and crypto are just terrible.
Business Week and Bloomberg News. He is the author of Number Go Up, Inside Crypto's Wild Rise and Staggering Fall. Dan Nathan's still with us. I don't even want to say this would be the biggest bailout to crypto ever because they don't need a bailout. They're not in trouble. This would be the biggest bonus boon right there before our eyes, transferring billions of dollars to an industry we know almost nothing about that's packed.
So there's some great alliteration there, right? The biggest boon before our eyes that transfers billions. But it's not actually a transfer to an industry. What we're talking about with the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Bill is taking some of the gold that the Fed is already holding, selling that gold, transferring it into Bitcoin, right? And putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet of the government so that future price appreciation inures to the benefit of the United States and becomes a powerful neutral asset that we don't control, unlike US Treasuries, with which we can back our promises and which can help our credibility on the international financial stage. I can promise you that people who are responsible for this, including Cynthia Lummis, who you saw in the beginning of the clip introducing the bill, are long-term Bitcoin believers. They are not planning to sell their Bitcoin to the government as part of this bill. They understand Bitcoin, the asset. They think likely that there's a lot more to go up in terms of price. And that's really not what this is about. This doesn't look like a bailout. This is not meant to pay bonuses to wealthy crypto executives. There's no company behind Bitcoin, right? They're just people like us who are doing it on a nonprofit basis because we believe that Bitcoin is good for the world. This is meant to be a good thing for the United States and is not a giveaway to the Bitcoin or crypto industry.
With money laundering and bad deeds.
I mean, it's wild. People are mad right now about the health insurance industry's profits. That's $100 billion. That's a couple of years of the entire industry's profits that would be spent buying Bitcoins.
So again, the comparison to the health insurance industry, I think, is very telling. I don't know to the extent to which people are just mad at the profits that the healthcare industry or the health insurance industry is making. I think the recent outpouring of hate that you've seen in the wake of the killing of the United Healthcare CEO is really about people's personal experiences trying to get their healthcare paid for, right? And how broken our health insurance system is in the United States. I don't think the average American has had that experience with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin has not caused them to not receive life-saving treatments that they need. It's not personally impoverished them. Bitcoin is a completely nonviolent, opt-in, peaceful process that people use to store their money for the long term. And so trying to tie the sort of populist anger from the health insurance system to Bitcoin, I think is a total non sequitur.
From people who already have them. And it is a kind of a bailout. I mean, Bitcoin's been around for 15 years. It hasn't delivered on any of its promises. It's as old as Uber, as old as WhatsApp, but nobody's really using it for anything. Now, they've given Trump a lot of money.
So again, this is a very popular thing for Bitcoin critics to say about Bitcoin. It has no utility. Nobody's using it for anything. There are no use cases. Again, this is a fundamental misunderstanding of what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is a monetary commodity, is first and foremost a store of value. The fact that the market cap of Bitcoin is over $2 trillion is proof in itself that lots and lots and lots of people are using Bitcoin as a store of value, right? They're using it as a savings technology. They're using it as a safe haven from monetary debasement that more or less all governments around the world are engaged in. And they're using it as an alternative to gold, that's much outpacing gold in terms of price appreciation, which is a great reason for the Federal Reserve to diversify and get rid of some of its gold and hold Bitcoin, right? The digital gold for the 21st century. But all of this is Bitcoin's killer app. This is the use case for Bitcoin, and it has very robust product market fit at this point.
They've got him talking about coming in and having the government spend huge money to pump the price up even further. It's really wild.
Well, it has delivered on something. It's a trading vessel for people who have made a ton of money and lost, but who've made.
Well, it's delivered on one important thing.
Yeah, I don't really know how to respond to that. It's a trading vessel for people who've made a ton of money and lost, but made. Bitcoin is a store of value. It is, has all of the properties of gold, but it's digital. That's what people use it for. It really is as simple as that.
It is a store of value, not too different than gold, right? So it's up 30,000% in the last 10 years. There's very few other assets on the planet who've done that. Maybe NVIDIA, they're the ones that make the high-end GPUs that power generative AI. So when I think about what's going on here, it's a $2 trillion market cap. It's not going away. And if you think about why it's gone up of late is because of the promise of deregulation, the leaning in. And I'll just say this, if you think MAGA movement is a strong political movement, just wait until you see these Bitcoiners. This is like one of the strongest financial religious movements that I've ever seen as long as I've been in the business for nearly 30 years. So it's here to stay, and maybe some new regulation will kind of help. And the last thing I'll just say, Zeke, when you think about this, I know you did a lot of work on this. Some of the smartest people that I know in finance and in tech believe in this, and they believe in the technology that's underlying it.
Okay,
it doesn't.
So I think this is a great point. I mean, one of the amazing things about the Bitcoin community is that you do get an incredible diverse array of really smart people who come at this from different angles, right? There are lots of people with engineering backgrounds, people with philosophy backgrounds, people with economics backgrounds, people with finance backgrounds, and there's so many different facets to what it means to have a digitally native commodity, a digital form of money that is engineered to be robust, work on a peer-to-peer basis without any trusted intermediary in between it, operate around the globe 24/7. This is something that, whatever you think about the future prospects for Bitcoin going up or down in dollar terms, if you're just writing off the Bitcoin community as grifters or stupid or, just corrupt, I think you owe it to yourself to take a second look at what are the legitimate arguments out there in favor of Bitcoin. Who are the people that are supporting this? Why are they supporting it? And what specifically are they saying about Bitcoin after they've sort of done the work?
Two things can be true. Okay, that's my point. Two things can be true.
Yep.
There could be real value in it. There could be a real business there. But that doesn't mean that there needs to be a government program transferring $100 billion to it.
So again, I think this is a continued misunderstanding about there could be a real business there. Bitcoin isn't a business. It's a form of money. It's really as simple as that. And we're not transferring money to Bitcoin to a business, to a group of people. This is the government selling gold and buying Bitcoin on the open market from willing sellers. That will likely cause the price of Bitcoin to go up. That's true. That will likely be good for people who are holding Bitcoin. By the way, many of those people are in the United States. The net effect of the United States government monetizing Bitcoin is to bring wealth into the United States. It would, to some extent, likely demonetize gold. It would take some of the monetary premium out of the price of gold. Gold is much more distributed outside of the United States and is much more widely held by the United States geopolitical adversaries. And so the net effect of instituting a strategic Bitcoin reserve would be to enrich the United States, enrich the citizens of the United States at the expense of our foreign adversaries. And the cost of not doing this is that some other country could take that first step. In the last week, we've seen a proposal in Russia for them to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve. There are plenty of, I think at this point, credible rumors about nations in the Middle East stacking Bitcoin, right, buying large Bitcoin with their sovereign wealth funds that they're holding. And all it would take would be for Russia or China or some other country to start accumulating Bitcoin in a big way and come out publicly that they did so. And then the price really would run away to the point where it would have the opposite effect of what I was saying before. That would enrich our adversaries and put the United States in a competitively weaker position where we're both defending our gold holdings and defending treasuries as the current global reserve asset. And this is something that we could completely sidestep if we were to enact the SBR.
And when we talk about smart people being into Bitcoin, is it because they think Bitcoin is like the technology that's going to power the future? Or is it because they're smart enough to realize there are a lot of people who are going to get on the train, feel the FOMO, and buy in? I mean, if you were able to predict that, more power to you. But I don't think the government should be in that business.
Well,
so, this is just oversimplifying Bitcoin to the greater fool theory, right? Accusing these smart people who are into Bitcoin of just doing so because they think other people will feel the FOMO. Never mind why people would feel that FOMO. But I just fundamentally disagree with this. I think if you do a little bit of reading on the internet, you just do a little bit of a Google search, you can see that the argument that the smart people are making is not just this greater fool theory. It's not just other people will feel FOMO and buy Bitcoin. It really is about what Bitcoin is and why it has value.
I mean, there's no different than people investing in stocks or other illiquid assets. There really isn't. I mean, if people believe...
Hold on a minute. Beneath that stock are companies that sell products that you can... Okay, ready? Let's give you the Hawk Tuah girl example, okay? Yeah. A drunk girl outside a bar who becomes famous for a lewd comment, more power to her, okay? She then launches a coin, is dishonest publicly about action around that coin, the value sinks, and now all these Bitcoin investors want this one.
So I think this is the second of these two MSNBC segments in a row where the host, who really does seem committed to just dunking on Bitcoin, basically equates Bitcoin with the Hawk Tuah meme coin. This is a pretty confusing argument. Bitcoin is not the same as Hawk Tuah coin. I agree. It appears that the creator of the Hawk Tuah coin made dishonest statements, did what looked like a pump and dump by her and her team, and people lost money. That has nothing to do with Bitcoin. And calling the people who bought the Hawk Tuah coin and lost money Bitcoin investors really is just trying to smear Bitcoin by association with something that it really has almost no association with in reality.
That isn't peak subprime. It makes me think I'm watching. It makes me think
it's unregulated. So that's the point. Why has it just gone from 50,000 to 100,000? All these folks believe that there's going to be a regulatory framework.
This is an important point here. One thing that Bitcoin and Hawk Tuah coin have in common is so far they've been the product of a regulatory environment that is just outwardly hostile to digital assets. The SEC under Gary Gensler, the previous Treasury Department, much of the previous Biden administration really just kind of hates crypto and did not want to put in place a clear regulatory framework that provides clarity to people in the space. And one of the results of that is that meme coins that don't have any fundamental value and ironically are less likely to be treated as securities under the law have proliferated, and people have really lost their shirt. And I don't know if this is a bad faith, failing on the part of the SEC to go after these meme coins that are really pump and dumps, right? That might be treated as either securities or commodities fraud or just regular garden variety investment fraud. But those have been allowed to flourish, and there are tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars of value on paper in these meme coins, while the projects that are trying to build actual infrastructure in the crypto space have seen relentless regulation by enforcement by the SEC. And I think this is a fair point that some of the recent rise in price in the major crypto assets, including Bitcoin, may be in anticipation of a friendlier regulatory regime that will at least give the digital asset space a fair shake to have clear rules and see what of value can be built rather than just attacking the industry. And that releasing of tension, right? The absence of an openly hostile regulatory regime is now being priced into the market, which is part of the reason why Bitcoin is over $100,000 per coin.
Put in place that will really be the sort of thing that will let that sort of innovation come out. I mean, I don't own it. I'm not making like the strongest case for it right now, but I understand why people own it and where they think it's going.
Look, I think the Chiron at the bottom says it all. It seems like there is a real push to say that Bitcoin is bad specifically by association with Trump. And we're going to tie it to the Hawk Tuah girl if we need to do it to make that argument. I really hope folks who are watching this can think for themselves, read about Bitcoin, maybe read about Bitcoin as opposed to meme coins like Hawk Tuah, and come to your own conclusion about, is there merit in the idea that Bitcoin is a good form of money? And if so, is there merit in the United States owning some over the long term when we start to see cracks in the system of treasuries as the dominant reserve asset? All right. Hope this was useful or at least entertaining.